A dramatic shift in our weather pattern is developing, setting the stage for multiple high-impact storms this week. Sharp temperature contrasts are taking shape across the country, creating one of the most volatile stretches of weather we've seen this winter. This evolving setup could lead to complex storm systems with multiple hazards unfolding simultaneously. A record-breaking heat wave is driving well above average temperatures northward, while colder air remains locked across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. This creates a sharp temperature boundary that sets the stage for a volatile pattern with all hazards on the table, from significant winter impacts to severe weather and the potential for tornadoes. By Tuesday, a large storm will impact the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast, with a disruptive mix of snow and ice possible where the cold air holds on. Even small temperature changes could dramatically shift the impacts, determining whether areas see heavy snow, freezing rain, or mainly rain. Travel issues are likely in icy zones. Later this week, a major storm is expected to develop, with forecast models still showing major differences in the exact outcome. What is becoming more clear is that this will be a widespread high-impact system. Heavy snow and ice are possible on the colder side, while farther south, the same storm could bring severe weather including damaging winds, large hail, and possible tornadoes. This is a storm capable of producing multiple hazards at once, impacting tens of millions of people across the United States. The big reason behind these large storms is that our jet stream is changing dramatically. Right now, it's coming out of the northwest across the Midwest and Northeast, allowing colder air into those areas. We're still seeing snow and even ice concerns developing across multiple regions. Back along the West Coast, we have a large troughing feature developing in California and Nevada. Eventually, by the middle and end of this week, much of that energy will spill over the Rockies and move into areas like the Great Plains, the Ohio Valley, and impact the East Coast. We're expecting at least one major storm to impact the United States later this week, with snow, ice, and severe weather all on the table. In between that, we'll see smaller storm systems, Alberta clippers that will bring the potential for snow and ice across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. Around Tuesday and Wednesday, we're expecting one of those Alberta clippers. Then by Thursday and Friday, we'll have a powerful storm system moving right over the Rockies. The timing of this will be crucial because it will determine who sees severe weather, who sees the threat of snow and ice, and who experiences some record-breaking heat. Today and tomorrow across the Midwest and Northeast, a little bit of snow will make its way across New York and New England throughout the daytime. Just anticipate slower travel in certain areas where moderate to heavy snow falls, though it will be pretty isolated in nature. By tonight, that moves out. Overnight tonight, a more concerning feature is developing across the Midwest. We're expecting freezing rain and sleet to become a concern tonight into tomorrow across Minnesota and Wisconsin. Untreated roadways will be dangerous, and there could even be areas that pick up around half an inch of ice, which means ice storm criteria might be met in a few counties. It's very important to pay attention if you're in Wisconsin or Minnesota, because tonight into tomorrow morning, we'll have a very narrow area of freezing rain from Minneapolis through Wausau. As we go into early tomorrow morning, that freezing rain will peak in intensity near Green Bay, Wausau, and Eau Claire. These areas could deal with heavy freezing rain that could lead to a quarter to half an inch of ice accumulation. But again, it's a very narrow corridor affecting only a few counties across Wisconsin. By Tuesday morning, we'll continue to see freezing rain across northern Michigan and northern Wisconsin. By around lunchtime, the freezing rain should start to wind down for most of the Midwest. A little bit of snow might be left over. There will be a mix of freezing rain and snow across central and northern New England heading into late Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. There might be enough ice accumulation to cancel some schools on Wednesday. Any untreated roadways will be slippery, though hopefully most roads are treated in those areas. By Wednesday afternoon, we're done with that storm. Then we have a much larger storm that will impact many more people on Thursday and Friday. In terms of total snowfall accumulation, this is not going to be a major winter storm for most areas. It's mostly going to be about 3 to 6 inches of snow, a pretty ordinary snow event for Michigan. Back over in the Northeast, we're also talking about a pretty ordinary snow event on Wednesday with widespread 3 to 6 inches of snow. Higher elevations could get closer to 8 to 9 inches, but nothing too extreme when it comes to snowfall. The bigger concern is certainly the ice accumulation, as many areas in Wisconsin and Minnesota will pick up as much as a quarter to half an inch of ice. It's a very thin and narrow corridor, but basically anywhere from Minneapolis back into Green Bay could see ice storm criteria met on Tuesday. Back over in the Northeast, Anywhere from Boston and southern New Hampshire back into Maine could see around 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice. A few locations could get closer to 1/2 an inch of ice, meaning ice storm criteria could also be met in New England. Areas like Stevens Point, Eau Claire, and Green Bay could see the most significant ice accumulation. Obviously, anywhere in the highlighted corridor could have problems, especially if roads are left untreated. In the corridor near Stevens Point, power outages could be on the table, so make sure generators and flashlights are ready. Back along the West Coast, we're continuing to see multiple storms hammering areas from San Francisco through Seattle. Unfortunately, tomorrow, it's going to be messy across Washington and Oregon with heavy mountain snow and heavy rainfall along the coastline. Wind gusts around 30 to 40 miles per hour are possible. On Wednesday, we'll eventually see some of that moisture try to sneak over into the southern plains and across the northern Rockies. That's when a large storm will start to form. It's going to develop more on Thursday, but Wednesday night that moisture will start to transport over the Rocky Mountains. By Thursday, we should have a pretty broad area of low pressure developing across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. That's the beginning of what could be 1 or 2 different large storms between Thursday and Saturday. Thursday afternoon, we're expecting a storm to form across the southern and central plains and the mid-Mississippi Valley. Severe weather may be on the table in Missouri, Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and southeast Kansas, perhaps even Texas, with damaging winds, hail, and an isolated tornado threat. What gets really strange is what happens on Friday. We'll have a large storm impacting the Midwest back into the Northeast. Wind gusts will be pretty high across the board for the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Severe storms will be on the table Friday across the Southeast and maybe even the Ohio Valley with damaging winds, hail, and perhaps a few tornadoes. That's not the weird part, though. The unusual aspect is that we'll have more moisture trying to go over the Rockies on Friday. We could see a secondary low-pressure system form, or some of that moisture merging into the large, broad area of low pressure across the Midwest. This could initiate an area of heavier snow Friday night into Saturday morning for Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. The European model shows a much more significant threat of snow and heavy rain and severe weather, both Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It shows a much stronger storm to begin with across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. We'll be talking about heavy rain for many of these areas with record warmth on the table in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. That area of moisture behind the storm system could become a separate storm or merge with the low-pressure system on Friday. The European model has it as a different storm system, which throws a curveball into everything because we could have 2 different storms. The second one, if that model is correct, could bring severe weather across the Southeast Friday into Saturday and a more significant threat of snow that could reach as far south as the Texas Panhandle. By Saturday morning, the European model shows a more significant batch of snow with heavy snow on the table for parts of Illinois and Wisconsin. There are also higher winds with tight pressure gradients, which means wind gusts will be elevated. If we see heavy snowfall, we could see blizzard conditions in parts of the Midwest. There's still a lot to sort out with this storm system. It's unusual to have this big of a difference in computer models only about 4 days from a large storm like this. However, we know that we're going to see plenty of rain Thursday into Friday, essentially from Texas back into Michigan and Ohio. There could be severe storms Thursday across the mid-Mississippi Valley, maybe as far south as the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Severe weather. Friday looks more likely further to the east in Dixie Alley and the Ohio Valley. Winter storm potential is definitely there, especially across the Midwest, but it's still uncertain. Snow could reach as far south as Texas or Oklahoma and could extend as far north as northern Minnesota. It really comes down to these 2 different air masses moving over the Rockies, which makes for a very tricky forecast. Another big story this week is the heat wave. We're about to experience another winter heat wave across most of the United States. By Tuesday afternoon, we'll have a widespread area from Montana back towards the Gulf Coast, with temperatures as high as 30 degrees above average. Saturday and Sunday should bring a stronger cold front across most of the Great Plains, Midwest, and along the East Coast. But this won't be the type of cold front that brings winter conditions back. It won't be that cold for most areas. Temperatures will only be about 10 degrees below average across the Southeast by next Monday, so we're not dealing with intensive cold air. We'll be dealing with a heat wave all week long, with many areas experiencing record-breaking low and high temperatures. This is SkyStorm USA bringing you the latest weather information you need to stay prepared.